Call this meeting of the Old Saybrook Board of Education in order, and we will start by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so this is Teacher Appreciation Week, and there's going to be a proclamation.
I'd be happy to. On behalf of the Old Saybrook Board of Education and the Old Saybrook Public Schools District, I would like to recognize Monday, May 6th, 2024 through Friday, May 10th, 2024 as National Teacher Appreciation Week. Teachers are the backbone of educational success. It is through their tremendous efforts that our students continue to succeed and reach new academic heights. Our teachers encounter students of widely different backgrounds, and it falls on them to mold future citizens through guidance and education. Our teachers spend countless hours preparing lessons, evaluating progress, and coaching students on how to achieve their highest goals and aspirations. In addition to traditionally held responsibilities, our teachers serve as role models, mentors, and counselors to the youth of our community. Their influence over our children strengthens our district, the future of our town, and the future of our nation. On this day, Tuesday, April 30th, 2024, the Old Saybrook Board of Education formally commends the teachers employed by our district.
Thank you. Our next item is our correspondence.
We have no correspondence this evening.
Okay. No. Reports from our Student Board of Education representatives.
Hello, everybody. So the first thing that we have are for our clubs. So DECA, which is the business oriented club, is having a field trip to visit Main Street sometime in May, and they're going to visit local businesses and they're going to see how they're run. And then Rambler put out their April Fool's edition a few weeks ago, and their regular April edition just came out today. Health Club is having bake sales at the Boys Lacrosse games. They had one on the 25th. And this is similar to what they were doing with the basketball games earlier in the year. Gray Matter Project has been doing volunteer work with Goodwin Buddies. And then the Community Outreach Committee has a cancer walk on May 3rd, which is this Friday. And this is super successful so far. There's a lot of people talking about it, and I know a lot of people are planning to go. Quiz Bowl has an in-person competition scheduled in May. If they can get enough people to sign up, they're still looking for more people to join that club. And then the current NHS drive is collecting products for animal shelters. And I believe that's being run by Aaron Fiorelli, a junior. And then for academics, students in Super had very strong opinions about the raised lunch prices for next year, which is what we were talking about last time. And students are looking at how they can reduce waste from the lunches to potentially keep these costs lower, keep these costs where they are while still being more efficient. And they want to get feedback on what lunches they want to see now that if they do become more expensive, so that they can still be eating foods that they enjoy. And then SAT scores came back. They were a little later than expected, which made some people nervous, but they did come back. And then the freshman class had a meeting on the 17th, and then the rest of the classes did have their meetings during flex. There was an upcoming health field trip to the elementary school to lead lessons for their wellness day. And then we're combining into this group where teachers from multiple schools teach a class and students from. So our school is proposing joining a group where students can join classes with students from multiple schools, so that if there's like interest in a class, but there's not enough interest at our own school, multiple students from different schools can join together and take this class either virtually or maybe on a weekend or after school. And this just gives students more of a variety of classes that they have the opportunities to take. So we're talking about that in Super, and that's a possibility for the future. And then senior awards night is on May 30th. And then underclassmen awards are on May 23rd. So for extracurriculars, there was a trade fair on April 17th that was successful, and there were a lot of students that attended. Sondheim nominations have been going out. Old Saybrook was nominated for a few different things. The chamber choir had their trip to Maine this past weekend. It was very eventful. I don't know if anybody heard about what happened on that trip, but Prom is on May 11th and students are very excited. A lot of tickets are being sold. Permission slips were due today, so there was a lot of interest in that as usual. And then they have also booked their prom venue for next year. The current student government has been doing a lot of planning for that. And then some students went to the middle school to talk about health-related topics and taught CTL and CPR. A group of chorus students went to the middle school to help students with their concert, so more high school, middle school interaction with chorus and drama and those types of clubs. And then the sophomore class is having a babysitting night to raise money. They did something similar to this, I believe, a few months ago, so they are doing something similar again. And then there was a slime run this past weekend to raise money for Safe Grad Night. And then for sports, and these are all the records as of last Friday when we submitted the report. Baseball had a record of 2-6. They had an amazing win against North Branford, who was previously undefeated. Softball has a current record of 3-3. Our record's actually 4-3. We beat Putnam last night, close game. And there's been a lot of improvement from last year where they only won 1 game. So already their record is so much better than it was at any point last year. Track had their first big meet on April 16th, which was against Old Lyme and Valley, and Old Saybrook won. And then girls lacrosse has a current record of 4-2, and they had their first Under the Lights game on April 18th. And even though they've had a lot of trouble having interest and having enough players to field the team, they've still managed to have a pretty successful season. So that's really good for them. And then boys lacrosse is having a great season. They have a record of 9-1, and they're ranked 10th in the state. And then boys tennis has a record of 1-7, and girls tennis has a record of 2-4. Golf, all they said was that they're not having a good season, so not really sure what they mean by that, but I guess they're not having very much success this season. And then Crew won their first regatta against Old Lyme on the 24th. And that's it.
Great, thank you. Jack.
One thing, Amelia, thank you so much for bringing the student opinions from Superin about the launch costs. I want to just encourage, at least myself, students, if you can give feedback back to the group to continue to bring opinions and continue to bring perspectives and feedback to the board so we can have more information. Thank you for that. I think that was awesome.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our board rep?
Great report. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we move on to audience and citizens, I see a bunch of students in the front. I assume you're here because you're interested in being a student rep next year. If you'd like to just mention your name, what grade you're in.
Hi, I'm Samantha Walsh. I'm a sophomore this year, so I'll be next year. I'm here to be Joan. I'm a junior this year and will be a senior next year.
I'm Joe Peter Content. I'm a sophomore this year, I'll be a junior next year. And Susie, sophomore this year, I'll be a junior next year.
Great, thank you for coming. Hey, audience and citizens tonight. I'm assuming we have a parent audience and citizens tonight, so I'm gonna go over the ground rules for that. Meeting conduct. The board may permit any individual or group to address the board concerning any subject that lies within its jurisdiction, except as noted below during a portion of the board's regular or special meeting, so it is designated on the agenda for such purpose. The Board of Education does not respond to specific questions during the course of public address, although a topic may be formally added to a board meeting agenda at a later time. The superintendent of schools may respond or clarify a specific question or issue at the meeting or subsequent to the meeting, or the board chairman may respond on behalf of the Board of Education. All speakers must identify themselves by name and address. 3 minutes may be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 30 minutes to each subject matter. The board may modify these limitations at the beginning of the meeting if the number of persons wishing to speak makes it advisable to do so. A board member shall be appointed by the chairperson prior to the meeting to act as timekeeper for the meeting, if deemed necessary by the chairperson. No boisterous conduct shall be permitted at any board meeting. Persistence in boisterous conduct shall be grounds for a summary termination by the chairperson of that person's privilege of address. Speakers are encouraged to refrain from presentations that discuss specific employees of the Board of Education, regardless of whether or not the employee is identified in the presentation by name or by another reference that tends to identify an individual. Members of the public are encouraged to submit commendations, comments, charges, or complaints concerning specific employees
to an appropriate administrator and or to the Board of Education under provisions of Board of Education policy. So saying that, looks like we have one parent, a couple parents who wish to address the board tonight. No one,
Nobody online.
no one online? Okay. Moving on. We have a consent agenda this evening. If there's anything on the consent agenda that needs further discussion, we'll need to pull it from the consent agenda. But basically, we're looking at our meeting minutes, from the last meeting, and a series of policies which we looked at the last meeting. So,
Yeah, I just have a comment, that if you look at the series 9,000, the student representatives on the Board of Education, we made a change that, students will attend a meeting from 7 to 8. Should there things that come up, that's at the board discretion, you can leave early. At the same time, there may be things on the agenda that you might want to stay for, and that will let you know in terms of having your input. If we don't want you to leave too early, then we don't get your input in terms of some of that information.
Through the chairs, so nothing's changed. Everything that we read.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, okay, but would just, the way you're making it seem to me right now is that something changed from the last time we read it. We've all read it, the policy hasn't changed, correct?
Okay,
That's what I'm trying to confirm.
correct. We're looking for a motion for the consent
Yeah, I'd
agenda.
like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Second by Steve. All those in favor of the consent agenda?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Okay. This evening, we're fortunate to have Heather Beal here this evening to talk about the Youth and Family Services Survey. Dr. Buckman, too.
Yeah, so this is a survey that could be in place for grades 6 through 12 and would be administered either with an active or passive consent from parents as preferred by the Board of Education. So Heather McNeil, our wonderful Youth and Family Service Director, is going to walk us through this.
Thanks very much. It's good to be here tonight. I just want to take a moment to acknowledge Ms. Gilbert, who's with the survey company. She can address any questions you might have about the technical aspects of the survey. I'd like to acknowledge my commission chair, Mike Rafferty, former OSPS educator and administrator, and also the director of Tri-Town Youth and Family Services, Rob Viviani, who's here because they may implement the same survey in Chesterfield River and Essex. So hello to everybody tonight. It's been a long time since I came before the board. My first slide is going to speak to a brief history of the search survey. And I did make it brief. When I saw your robust agenda, I thought I really have to put it down even more. I do know that there are some folks on this board who have some experience, either through their own students taking the survey many years ago, or just being community members and seasoned members of the Board of Ed who are familiar with the search survey process and what the family and school collaboration has grown from that. So I'm going to speak for a moment to the original survey, which I think happened in 1996, maybe. And one of the questions or one of the responses that garnered a ton of interest at the time was that only 11% of the students responded that they felt the community cared for them, which was a very low number at the time. And I'm sure Mr. Rafferty can still remember what that might have felt like. Since that time, we've done a ton of work collectively as an organization and as a community. I have to catch my breath. I know all of you, it's okay, right? Okay. We've done a lot of work to build up a community foundation that supports the active growth and enhancement of opportunities for our youth and students within the community and the families. So in 1997, Healthy Community, Healthy Youth, which Karen, I'm sure you remember that. It's the genesis of a grassroots organization that had representatives from communities of faith, the schools, parents, some students, and definitely in the public school system involved and town departments as well, who looked at some of the data and identified areas of concern as well as areas of strength, because the survey results are not one thing or another. It's really kind of a thumbnail sketch of what's going on, both positive and less than positive. We've done a survey every 2 to 3 years. Since then, the last one was November of 2017. It would have been administered again in 2020. We all know what happened that year. So it hasn't been done since then. So really, what we're looking for now is an opportunity to gather information on a lot of unknowns. I've heard this period of time explained as we're flying a plane while it's being built. And you've probably heard that example before, Because a lot of the results of the the pandemic and the impact on social emotional development of our youth and the impact on families isn't known to us. I mean, some of it's being felt certainly, but there's going to be repercussions for some time to come. So the community buy-in involved at that time, town departments, some federal money that we applied for at the time, not we, but my predecessor, and Healthy Community, Healthy Youth. One of the first programs that was put in place was Grounds for Kids. You may remember that. It was a playground that was over at Goodwin. From that, some of the programs that sprung forth, and maybe your sons were involved in this, junior firefighters, movies on the beach, summer stock theater, family day, Enrichments for All, which was a very robust middle school after-school program. And one of those areas that was identified as an area of vulnerability was, what are our kids going to do after school? What's keeping them busy? How are they being supervised? And the Enrichments for All was really an opportunity to bring in volunteers who were adult, positive adult role models, keeping our kids supervised, engaged, and happy in creative endeavors throughout the afternoon hours, where folks could extend their work days potentially and not worry about what their kids were doing after school. The collaboration involved civic organizations like the Rotary Club, the Exchange Club, the Lions, many different folks. And there wasn't a ton of money at that time. My predecessor and HCHY applied for a drug-free communities grant through the federal government, and were awarded that. I believe it was in 1998. And I began in 2010, which is just when the money ran out. And since that time, the town has really helped support a lot of our programming, and we have applied for smaller grants to keep things in different pockets going forward. One of the benefits to doing the Youth Voices Count survey now is that the language that it speaks in and the data that it will give us speaks directly to the grant applications that we're hoping to get to fund things going forward. And maybe let's speak to that more going forward. So growth and change is inevitable. And one of the things that we're looking for now is current information on the things that are impacting our children and our youth and their families within the community. A lot of you already know this, and from your own experience with your kids or being involved in school systems. And we know some of it because of our experience with kids over youth and family. But what we know is that they're feeling disengaged from each other, from the community, and from the school through no fault of anyone really. But that's one of the side effects of the pandemic. And we want to be able to adapt and change some of the things that we've been doing to more appropriately meet the current concerns. You can go to the next slide. So the effort would be funded through an ARPA request that I made probably about 16 or 17 months ago. And the ARPA committee granted us $6,000 to facilitate this process, and Youth and Family Services has identified another line item that would help support any other ancillary costs. So there'd be no cost to the school system for this process. I don't really think I need to answer that question. I don't know why I put it up there. You all know why it's important to gather this data. We utilize it in many different ways to appropriately identify areas of concern or vulnerability again within the community, but also to identify areas of strength so that we might shoot resources in that area to help support and enhance those things. One of the things I forgot to mention, and you just reminded me of it, was that one of the things that sprang from the initial survey was the beginning of placing student reps on boards and commissions. So that was a very important thing that you just reminded me of. What's done with the information? We utilize it in ways, it's de-identified, by the way, they don't collect any identifiable data or protected information. And the first report that we do is for the Board of Ed. So you're the first eyes on it after hours. And then from that, you're all invited to use it in ways that are going to be helpful to your system. The school and youth and family work together all the time. And so it's really a starting point for the development or enhancement of the programs that we're already doing with you. How does the survey company protect confidentiality? Again, Melissa could speak to that if you'd like to know that. But as I mentioned, it's de-identified and doesn't collect any protected data. Can you go to the next one, Chuck, please? So the planning part is, I believe you got a sample of the survey sent to you. We can make the whole thing available to you, certainly to look at. Additional questionnaires can be considered and modified for grades 6th, 7th, and 8th. Certainly, there's an area of questioning that we don't ask around sexual activity. And then 9 through 12, that's more common for that area, that age range. We do film a local PSA involving some students that other kids will recognize, talking to them about confidentiality, what we do with the information, reassuring them. One of the questions that typically comes up at a presentation like this is, what if a student identifies themselves at risk in some way, either a mental health concern or suicidal ideation? And the information, again, is de-identified. How would we find that student? So in the PSA that would be shown to everyone before they take the survey are local resources and a discussion on how to access help if they're in need. And then the public school staff, certainly in coordination with building administrators, if they wanted any of us to come into staff meetings, just to talk about concerns that teachers might have. And some of the teachers are parents also of kids who might be taking the survey, so we'd be happy to be involved in that process. Next one. So setting a date, we'd be asking for, if possible, sometime in October, November, certainly whatever works within the academic calendars, not disrupt anything that's already going on. It's helpful if we can do that as we get the information returned to us then before Christmas, so that we can utilize it within the second half of the academic year. It sent forms to parents and guardians in grades 6 through 12. And we do have planned and sessions for parents. I think we had 4 in 2017. I scheduled them during the day and in the evening to accommodate different work schedules if people might be interested. We had them at Park and Rec, at the library, at Youth and Family, and within one of the schools. We only had 2 people come to 1. But regardless, we'll make it available and we'll make ourselves available to answer questions from parents or anybody who's interested in learning more. And parents and guardians can certainly choose to opt out. Next, that might be it, right? So we did the survey, now what? Board of Ed presentation. Again, I would do that first once we get the report back. And then from that, we have a planning committee that involves all the different sectors of the organization. HCHY had 12 sectors in it, and it involved communities of faith, business organizations, the school, similar to the makeup of our commission now. We have community conversations with planning, along with town department and program planning, because we have to mobilize our resources, which is staffing and financial resources as well, identify areas of concern, and we want to hear from all interested stakeholders about that. And parents and students would be part of this process. And so the goal really, again, is to strengthen vulnerabilities. It's not to find problems and highlight those. It's really to try to take a reasoned look at what's going on and how can we help better support the youth and growth within the community. So that's it. So I'm happy to answer questions, and if I don't have the answer that you need right at this moment, I'd be happy to make sure I get it from you and send it to Karen.
So you said what you presented to us in our packet was a sample.
Yes.
What other categories would be questioned?
Sure. The sample, I believe, had only 2 pages, right?
I'm going through it right now. There's a lot of different sections.
Yeah.
So the different parts are related to some demographic information, some substance use related. So it's risk-taking behavior and protective factors. So what we want to know is, who's the community that surrounds them? What kind of information or support do they have when they're struggling with something? We talk a little bit about mental health concerns, stress and anxiety. We want to know about parents' disapproval of different kinds of behavior as well.
That was in there, yeah.
Trying to examine, community and family culture. There are questions for older students around sexual activity. Their own perceptions of youth, whether or not they feel they have someone within the school or community to talk to if they need support. There are some questions about substance use that kind of break it down in terms of types of substance. Nicotine and vaping and the legalization of marijuana currently are major concerns for anyone working in youth prevention. There are questions around alcohol and also prescription drugs, and those are fairly common in past surveys as well. Is there a particular area that you might?
I think we might actually have the whole, because everything you mentioned
You may have
seems to be here.
family communication.
And I think there's the whole
Oh, you
document
may
you
have
have
gotten the
there.
whole thing.
Might have gotten the whole
Everything
thing.
that you shared with me, Heather, I uploaded.
Okay.
So
You do the whole thing.
So you mentioned grades 6 through 8 would not be getting that whole section on the sexually explicit questions?
Yes, sexual activity, we typically, we can take that.
But, so I had another general question I had, or concern I had, was that, I think it's gonna be difficult to, I think some of the responses would perhaps be skewed, because I noticed on one of the questions, a response was, I think on question 14 was, I don't know, which was, that's very clear. But a lot of the other questions, it seemed there should have been an, I don't know, or NA, or I can't answer this. Because if they, if they answer some of the questions, I think it's misleading. I think you get misleading results.
And that's on the sexual activity specifically.
That, and, there was even one, for example, question 19, how many kids in school, how many kids in school use these substances, and you list all these substances. How do they answer that? Because it was none, some, a lot.
Right, I don't know, isn't an option.
I don't know, was not an option. How do you answer that? So you get a result that,
Yeah, so kids can always skip a question if they're unsure, no questions are required, for a
Okay.
single one.
okay,
We actually haven't gotten feedback before that people have a hard time estimating, something like that. And the other thing I wanted to know is there's a lot of skip patterns. So if you haven't used substances, we don't keep asking you about substances, so that may address some of the unable to answer certain things.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
so my question's along a little bit more of the de-identified information. We talk about that, yet we have question 2, 3, 4 are all about biological, what you identify as, what you were assigned as birth, what describes you best. And we have some real concerns in the school system about talking about any of these items, and if somebody is not, a different than what most would perceive them being. So, if somebody identifies as something different than that most everyone else doesn't, then they might actually now be identifiable. So I'd be concerned that we have those questions in, or I am concerned that we have those questions in there. I don't see how those 3 questions have anything to do with the other questions that we're asking. And 2, if there was a need, I still don't, I believe that it provides too much identifying information, which is a concern that we've talked about in other aspects of our meetings. So I would push for that to be removed on the basis of that.
You'd ask for the demographic gender question to be removed.
And sexual orientation.
Karina, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. That was a great presentation. I appreciate the history and the insight. I'm not a proponent of this particular survey. To address your concern, Steve, that our policy does say that we're not supposed to be asking questions around sex behavior or attitudes unless we have written permission from a student's parent. I do feel that the questions are very explicit and like question 21, think back over your entire lifetime. What was your age and years when you first used the substances below? That presumes to a student that they should have or have used one of these substances. And that was because I was one of the upset parents when my child took this survey. I didn't know that it was being administered. And, my kids were very sheltered. They came home with like, you can sniff glue and get high, and so I have a concern that some of these questions lead students to conclude or be curious about behaviors that they may not have been aware of before, or access to things, or even the perception of, well, my peers are doing this apparently, so maybe if I could be one of the cool kids, I should be participating in this. So that's my fear with the way some of these questions are asked. I think you guys do great work, and I think that you can have access or create these programs that are beneficial without having to have this survey administered. And I think that a lot of the social emotional questions are already asked by surveys that are administered at least once or twice during the school year. That's another fear of mine, is that we're over surveying the students with respect to their social emotional well-being. And all in the name of survey data. So, and then my final comment is that if we decide as a board that this is a survey that we want to administer to our students, I would strongly suggest that we as a board require an opt-in rather than an opt-out. So that parents say, yes, I want my child to participate in this and provide information rather than saying your kid, you know, your student's gonna take this unless you take the time to tell us that they're not gonna take it. And then also Zoom, right? Zoom wasn't a thing for the meetings before. So if you're gonna have parent meetings, certainly make the, you know, that's just, I think it's normal these days, but anyway, those are my comments.
Jim,
Yeah, earlier you talked a little bit about the students that have done the survey that may be at risk, either perhaps suicidal or a substance issue. So if I recall what you said correctly, there are some information within the survey in terms of reference notes perhaps, but there wouldn't be anything acted upon after the fact if someone said, I'm in the worst mental condition that I've ever been and I need some, obviously, if they went that far, they probably ask for help, but some kids don't do that. And is that any possibility of coming out of this
No,
type of study?
absolutely, and thank you for bringing that up again. So the PSA or the video that's shown collectively to all people taking the survey will go through that. If you feel, if this survey, you know, elicits any feelings in you related to such and such, or you feel like you're at risk, these are local resources for you to contact and call. In addition, a lot of us, our clinical staff, is in an observation area, and we're familiar enough with a lot of the students and with the guidance staff help to know if we're seeing a response in a student that might indicate they're becoming upset or they might be at risk. So a lot of the students who are at risk are already potentially identified in terms of us having some knowledge of who might be more vulnerable around this kind of information.
And just one quick question,
Yeah.
what's the time commitment expected for taking the survey and
Less than 20 minutes.
discussion? Okay, 20 minutes. Thank you.
Jane, go ahead.
So you had mentioned, it sounded like not every child will encounter all the questions. So, for example, the question that you were concerned about, that may not pop up unless they had previously indicated that they had exposure to that or use of products. So if someone had I've never used this, you know, I've never used a substance, they'll just go a little bit quicker down and they won't ever see that question.
And to speak to your concern, and I certainly appreciate that, we did a vaping presentation for seventh grade, probably 4 years or so ago. And a parent called me and said that their child had come home and said that we showed them how to vape today in school. And I said, well, you know, that's part of what we showed them was the mechanism and things that went into it. But we're very available to talk about, it was about prevention education, obviously. So we can't always control what the student might take or receive from the information, but we do keep our ears open to the feedback that we get. So it's a great question.
Jack?
I personally, really like support 100% the survey. I do respect what Karina said, and I think parental consent is an important part. It should be a part of the process. But we talk in this board, and we have had conversations recently about the importance of gathering transparent data, non-biased data. This right here seems like it's a fantastic tool to do just that. To gather data that is not filtered through adult sources, not filtered through us persons who, you know, have our own ways of looking at information and then utilizing that information for one sole reason, that is the benefit of students within this community. So I think it's a great tool. I do agree, though, that there should be a level of parental consent within it.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that. And it also is going to be heavily utilized by us, but it's available and able to be utilized by the school as well. And, you know, recently we were at a CSST meeting and we shared Kate Bender's survey that the board had approved. And there was a limited use available for that data. You know, this data is going to be available and able to be utilized by all, you know, all the members of the OSPS.
So Heather, so in order for you to move forward with the survey, you need board approval. That's correct, right?
Correct, because it's administered drugs.
I just want to circle back. I just want to be clear. So when you're addressing the students prior to administering the survey, so you make it clear that if a student is perhaps not comfortable answering a question or does not have experience with whatever you're asking, they just skip it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, the PSA will be 2 or 3 students that they're familiar with, upper class, and then, we'll choose. We'd be happy to we'll show you the PSA before it's shown widely to the students. You can improve it, and then we can always go back and edit it and redo it. So you would absolutely, we used to have moderators in each room who would speak from the script, but not everybody delivered it the same way.
Right.
So the PSA really eliminates that, and everyone's in the same playing field.
Change.
Yeah, so in terms of the demographic data, will that be confidential? In other words, we won't get that information back that, that there were 3 children that responded that they felt that they were a different gender than what they were born with. It's some, it is all that information going to be excluded from what the community was,
So if you proceed with that question, the demographics upfront are just about the sample, but we don't do any individual level reporting, so everything is aggregated. We can look at differences by gender if that's requested, that doesn't have to happen, and then anything under 6 individuals we suppress.
Okay, that's what I was getting to, yeah, how small the sample size needs to be to keep that information. Okay, so it's 6.
6 for individuals, but again, we wouldn't say like these 6 individuals reported substance use, it would just say 6 individuals took it, for example. Does that make sense?
So I think that if I hear you, Jane, it's more about the part that I question about the genders, the more identifying items. Like if 6 students said that they smoked vapes, that's, no one's gonna be able to figure out who the 6 students are. But if 6 students said that they identify as a cat or a dog, then that's a more identifiable thing. So that's more of the question I think Jane's asking is how do we limit that information from getting, and if we're limiting the information, why are we collecting it? So I'm not comfortable. I haven't heard. Well, it's what you identify as. So some may identify as a cat or a dog, and that's great if they do. But I haven't heard a response to whether those questions are gonna be taken out. I also haven't heard. I don't feel comfortable voting on this until I know the exact questions. What is gonna be said?
So is this an all or nothing? Can it be modified?
It can be modified.
Yeah, so we have a core survey, which is about those substance use, mental health, other lifestyle things. The optional add-on modules include sexual behaviors, toxic stress, bullying, and extracurricular activities. Some communities have chosen to remove the gender identity and sexuality question up front. That's about it for customization. We can add on as well. If you have other things you want to learn about.
John?
I'm sorry to do this again. You've heard us talk about the survey and some of the topics. Have you had any opinions come through your head or thoughts about taking a survey like this, talking about some of the subject matter that we mentioned?
I mean, for this specific survey, I honestly don't remember taking it. I don't know, maybe it was given before I was at that age of taking it, but personally, I haven't really had an issue with any of the surveys we've been given. Like there haven't really been questions where that I was uncomfortable with answering, or any questions that like altered my opinions or anything that I was worried about people identifying me with. So that's just personally, I haven't felt uncomfortable for any of these surveys, but I don't know about other students.
Do you feel that it may be beneficial to gather large group data on things like substance use and behaviors? Maybe compulsive behaviors like video gaming and other things like that. Do you think that may be beneficial to students? Is that something?
I mean, yeah, and especially getting the data from students. I feel like for a lot of these topics, students have a better perspective of maybe how many students in their school vape or how many students in their school are using illegal substances than the teachers do, just because that's who they're interacting with every day. So I think that it definitely could be useful.
Heather, I'm thinking there are just some board members who are gonna need more time to make a decision tonight. We need to flush it out a little bit, some of the questions. So it may be best perhaps as a board if we put on the agenda, maybe at the next meeting or in the next meeting, so we can go through this in more detail. Types of questions we're gonna ask.
Sure. Sure, and if you would like to send me any questions between then now and then, I'd be happy to come back and.
So are we gonna talk about this without Heather available? I mean, I feel like kind of like now's our opportunity to
Maybe we can
To-
ask questions, but I'm thinking,
Like hold the vote, ask.
yeah,
whatever.
I don't be the vote on this tonight based on where some of the things I'm hearing at the meeting, so.
If there are further questions, that's the opportunity. to
Yeah.
Questions.
Yeah, that's my concern that we're, you know, because I don't, you know, we're at May, and this is something that we need to get done sooner rather than later. We want this implemented by the fall. I do have one, question, I did see some questions related to, gambling. And are those new for like, have there been gambling questions before?
There were gambling questions in 2017, but only a few. And the trend has been that there is an increasing number of youth at risk related to online gambling and sports betting.
Yes,
So that's
I
why.
am tremendously concerned about, you know, what I'm seeing, and I think it's a huge issue. So I feel like there's a lot of urgency with that, and I appreciate that that's been incorporated more into this. So my feedback on this is I think it's urgent data we need. I think it's urgent.
May I ask a question? So,
Actually, Steve.
oh, okay, I apologize. Good.
I was just gonna say, from what I'm hearing from the group, it sounds like there's data here that we would like to obtain. My hesitation, and I think some others, is what specific information is going to be obtained or how. I think we could give them some solace and say, you know, we could hold a vote potentially and say, yes, we agree in concept that in that time frame we will hold a survey of some sort. Pending approval from the board of the context, the content of the survey and what specifically is going to be asked. I've said it before in meetings, I'm not comfortable on voting yes or no on something unless I see specifically what I'm voting yes or no on, whether it be policies, surveys, any kind of question. Show me exactly what I'm saying yes or no on, and then I can say yes or no on it. So that would be one of my pushbacks is we don't know exactly what they're asking of us. Survey's great in concept. I just need to know the details. So I would say we might be able to get some information to them with caveats.
And I would just be careful that our board meetings for the next several meetings are very packed. So I think moving it to another board meeting might be thinking about the timeline, and how much time we have left, how many meetings we have left. So,
I
just,
don't think it'll get solved tonight.
so it's a consideration.
I'm sorry, I don't think.
I'm sorry, thank you.
I
If, this is just a hypothetical, if you were not to run the survey, how would that affect your programming? Right, like, is there programming that you wouldn't be able to run, right, because we recognize some of the issues, right, we talked about online gambling, we know is an issue. We know that we have data on social emotional well-being from the schools. There are some known issues. Well, if this wasn't to happen, how does that affect your program?
So, and some of the social emotional data we don't have access to, it's taken through the schools. So without the data, it's sort of like shooting in the dark. And currently, we offer some range of programming and, we can intuitively, practically see when there's no registration for them, that there's no interest in that, there's no need. So it's almost, it's not a waste of resources, but it's an inefficient use of our time and resources to keep shooting that way. And having the information is just an elimination of kind of the areas, again, strength and vulnerability, that helps us do more targeted interventions and directed programs. Great.
And then one follow-up question, do you do any analysis of, as a result, so we had these results in 2017, let's say, we implemented these programs and we've demonstrated a reduction in these areas, like, do you
Oh,
compare?
absolutely. And prior to 2017, we had the longitudinal data from 1997 to 2017 that we could show, and we did every year. When we have a survey, we'd say, here's an improvement, here's a reduction, here's what we're seeing, this is what the data tells us. It's the only way that makes it make any sense. Yeah, good, thank you.
Jamie, you're next.
Well, to your concern, Steve, my concern is not having the data on, how they are identifying in terms of their gender. I feel like we, there's things that are coming up and we're making assumptions, and there are people in the community who really don't like anything that has to do with transgender or children and adults who identify differently than how they were biologically born. And it's, it certainly creates a lot of issues. I think we're desperately needing the data for what these people feel. If the kids are feeling, let's have some statistics on kids who are feeling that way, so that we can better serve and better be prepared for, for their feelings, for how much of the population we're dealing with, and not just saying, well, they shouldn't feel like that. Because that's what I feel in our community is that we're telling kids, you shouldn't feel that way. If you were born a boy, then that's the way you need to feel. That's the way you need to act. And that's the peg we need to put you in. And if, we're off the mark on that, how far off the mark are we?
Through the chairs, I just want to respond. I want the board and everyone to understand, I'm not saying people can't be whatever they want to be. That is not. I'm concerned that those three questions violate policies that we have in place that will identify there's a small number of people. We have talked in these meetings and outside that we are not to use information that could identify a small group. And if there's a small group of people that feel that way, this information will identify them, and that violates our policies. That's all I'm saying. So,
But I thought, thank you, sorry, I thought we were given, some legal advice recently that said as long as it's unidentified, is that the term we're using?
but
Then it's still within our policy.
But if the numbers are so small that they allow you to identify individuals based on the small number of individuals, then you cannot discuss that information.
And I believe that you have a set number for that.
Yeah, the rule of thumb generally is 6 in social sciences. We can change that if that's important. And I also just wanted to comment, we've been doing this survey, we've done it in 25 districts in Connecticut with 43,000 students as of last week. The gender question has been always included up until about probably fall 2022. Communities where there's a little pushback, so now I would say it's like 50% of the time that question gets included. But the reason it's included is because we can statistically show that those kids are at increased risk of mental health concerns and other behavioral health concerns. And then we can alter programming to help them.
Yeah, just have a quick question. I value Youth and Family Services and its approach toward addressing young people and some of the things that they're experiencing. So my question is, I know that's their sexuality question, and they're very specific. So based on some of those questions, what would you do with those answers? Because I think sometimes what happens is that I think parents were concerned, this is for high school though, I think this is, yes, is that some of them might be looking at it going, oh, I don't know what that really means, or why are some of those questions so explicit? And I'm just asking for information, and based on the students' answers, what might we providing?
I think some of the most rich conversations we've had with students have been after the survey related to some of that content. And I think that it identifies areas that may not be covered in the normal course of their have the health curriculum, that the schools can't cover everything, so it gives us an opportunity to do some, to bring in other experts, to provide medical and medical information, for parents, and we always include both sides of that equation. And we've had experts come in to talk to parents about how to have conversations with your youth around healthy relationships, whether that's physical activity or not, it's emotional and relational activity. So I think that, parents typically, I'll speak for myself, it was challenging to have conversations around that with my own daughters and my son. And it was helpful to have someone come in and talk about, conversations we could have. So from those kinds of questions springs forth a lot of, I think, really meaningful parent-child interaction. Did I answer?
Yep, and I think somebody had mentioned that in some of the districts, they've chosen not to necessarily have that component.
And that's certainly not.
Heather, I think, board members, we value the survey tremendously. I think we have some disagreements on some of the questions that we're gonna put on the survey. Is it possible to, I think, Steve, to your point, approve the survey, with a few questions we need to flesh out at a future meeting? So at least we can, on record, saying we approve moving forward with the survey, just we need to figure out a couple questions which we're not sure about this evening. I'm trying to move this along so we can come to a resolution there.
Trevor, I would also strongly urge the board to consider that it has to be an opt-in. And the reason, I say that for a couple of reasons. One is our policy about answering questions related to some of this content requires written approval by the parents. And so, if I'm reading this correctly.
I think, so I went through this very carefully earlier. I have policies and style of things. But I believe that it stated that there's certain situations where those things, we have to get parent approval if the funding for this is from the US Department of Education, which we verified in this case is not.
Right, there is a section that talks about fund sources other than the Department of Education, third-party surveys.
Correct.
But it also, and it goes on to say that,
It's at the board's discretion. We can choose to make it.
right,
Yes,
they
yeah.
shall give a direct notice to parents. And that parents need to review the survey if they wish, and in here it
Yes,
says
we
that,
have to offer them.
you guys-
access to that.
will you allow, because what I read in the materials is that you don't want parents to read the survey ahead of time because you feel that that would skew potentially responses.
If a parent wants to see the survey, we absolutely want them to see the survey. What we try to avoid is it getting disseminated online
Mhm.
when there's not an opportunity to discuss it, and snips can be taken and then you get the wrong impression.
Right,
But we typically what we have folks do is kind of what Heather's talked about, like listening sessions or office hours where someone can come in and review the survey. That's absolutely common practice.
yeah, I would just
Would you like to make
encourage,
a motion?
so, do you have a question?
No, I was gonna make,
I'd like, no, okay.
I was gonna make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we move forward with the survey in the fall as outlined. Under the guidance of opt-in, parents opt-in. And pending board approval of the final copy of the survey. So we need the actual survey to be sent out for board approval. That's my motion.
And I think that this entire,
Actually,
okay, sorry, you're right,
Make a
yep,
motion.
so you seconded.
Okay.
Okay.
Go ahead, Priya.
Sorry, that was a second question.
Thank you. My understanding is that the 30 some odd pages are the entirety of the core survey as well as optional add-ins. So if we can identify what the core part of the survey is, and maybe we provide feedback on which of the optional, right? So we kind of have the information here. We can say, all right, we don't agree with this section, and right?
So just to be clear, the only section that would not be given to the 6th through 8 was the sexual questions. Everything else was included.
So
And when you vote on those questions or those sections, does it have to be a unanimous board vote?
No, we typically go with
No, it's a
majority.
Not unanimous.
Take your question.
I'd like to change I'd like to amend your motion. Can I do that? You can amend the motion
Yeah.
so that it is an opt-out, so that, it will be given to students unless parents specifically opt out.
That's a different motion. We have to
Then move the other
We have to
motion.
move the other motion before we can. Logistically, we have to move that motion. Even if we approve the motion, you could make another motion to amend the motion that we just approved. But that's a whole separate motion. That's.
Okay, is that typical? Is that atypical with the opt-in, opt-out? What's?
The last
what do you find?
time in November 2017 was the first time it was only given to 9th through 12th graders, and it's the first time it was an opt-out. I mean, purposeful opt-in. All the times previously, it's that's consent,
It was an opt-in, you said?
that's consent.
Previous to
All-
2017, it was all passive consent. In 2017, it was an opt-in.
And that was because in 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And the response was very favorable.
Correct.
With the opt-in.
You were able to get statistical information.
Yes.
Okay.
Jack, you had a comment?
That was my question. We've mentioned, was there a dramatic difference in the data collected with the opt-in
Point of order,
versus?
I don't mean to cut you off, point of order, we do have a motion on the floor, it has not been seconded.
It has.
Well, no, I
No,
don't.
it has been
The
seconded.
first,
Been
the
said.
first
You're
motion,
right.
the attempt at a second,
She doesn't have a motion on the floor.
Yeah.
no,
There's no motion on the floor.
It's just your.
all right, so we're back to the discussion
Yeah.
on the first discussion.
Yeah.
No, I didn't mean to cut you off. Jack.
No worries, no worries.
Yeah, it was just, and I think you answered it. You may have answered, somebody answered. it. And that was that there was enough, with the opt-in, there was still very valuable data collected. That's all. Was
Okay,
I can get the exact numbers. for you.
great.
okay. All right,
Is there any further discussion? Jane, go ahead.
You know, from the professionals who do this, how would you feel would be a more effective way? Do you believe that opt-in is a better way to go about this? Or would you say, passive consent, or does it
I'm
matter?
really open to whatever the board decides. I think, you know, the desire to be respectful to a parent's wishes, is very important to us, you know, and we want them to be involved and engaged with the process. So the more aware they are of what we're doing, and if they want to have conversations and it's a more active process for them, I fully support that. It's not about us doing anything, kind of seeing what we can get without their awareness. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Before the vote, can I just clarify Steve's motion? So the motion is to administer the survey in fall 2024 with parental opt-in pending board approval of the final copy of the survey. Roger. Okay.
I have a question.
Jack,
How would we go about and when would we go about that final approval? What's the process for that?
we're gonna have to either have a special meeting, talk about it, or throw it on the next meeting.
What does, I mean, we still have meetings ahead, so by doing this motion, my understanding, by doing this motion, they can now move forward with creating the actual questionnaire that it's gonna be, so that you can put it on an agenda 2 meetings down the road, whatever, where we have the opportunity to review it. This is an online system, correct?
Yeah.
It's not like they're reinventing the wheel, it's just which tabs they're gonna allow, so their background, there's not a lot of information that they need to change. They just need to show it to us to approve, so I would imagine that even if in September we were looking at this information, you guys could still click a couple buttons and still apply the survey in October, November?
Yeah, if you wanted to survey tomorrow, I'd recommend against it because of the consent issues, but we can have a survey for you tomorrow. I'm hearing mixed, which sections to include, so we can draft one.
So
Probably those.
So I don't think that is gonna be a huge time frame issue for us. I think the big thing is letting them know that we will move forward with it. They can start putting something together and draft whatever they feel is the best. Hearing what we've addressed as concerns tonight, they can create what they think is best to present to us for us to move forward.
I just get a little concerned about us individually kind of nitpicking at all these, whether it's the language, the terms used, the sections and things like that, that it might be difficult to get to an end result.
I don't believe it will. I think we'll be able to vet it out. Personally, I believe we'll be able to just vet it out pretty quick, once we have the opportunity to actually look at it and say, hey, you know what? I agree with you. I hear what you're saying.
we just need a majority to move forward, so.
Right.
Sounds good.
Okay,
We'll be fine.
so some other questions, I'm gonna call for a vote on the motion. Could you read the motion one more time? Yes, Terry?
Yep, so move to approve the administration of the search survey in the fall of 2024 with a parental opt-in pending board approval of the final copy of the survey.
Trent, if I may, it's now called the Youth Voices Count survey.
Voices count, okay, so.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you raise your hands one more time? Okay, thank you.
All opposed,
Opposed.
any abstentions? So moved. Thank you, Heather.
Can I make a motion? Can I make a motion that we move forward as a passive opt-in, or sorry, passive consent, thank you. Passive consent for the Youth and Family Services to create the survey that they feel is appropriate for our youth. And that we implement that in the fall.
I have a second on that motion. So the motion can carry on. Okay, Heather, thank you so much for coming. Thank you everyone for coming this evening. Okay, moving on to our agenda tonight, we have course request for ECE computer science.
Yes, so Dr. Fletcher, and I believe some of our staff is going to be presenting about the UConn ECE Introduction to Computing and our Advanced Digital Media Productions class. Dr.
Good evening, everyone. So we have 3 courses that are going to be presented to you, but 2 of the courses are going to be in one presentation. We will start with Missy Barnes and Stacey Anderson presenting the UConn ECE Mathematics for Business and Economics course proposal. And of course, our goals and purpose of this is always to provide further study of advanced topics in each area, allow students who may be interested, and all of this is always tied back to our strategic plan.
This is the course proposal, the computer science to digital media.
Hold on. They're both the wrong one.
We're doing computer science first.
Okay, computer science first.
Perfect. So this would be Kara Bell coming to us with 2 with 2 of the course proposals. This is all going to be combined into one presentation with Kara Bell presenting both of these. So this will be UConn ECE Introduction to Computing as well as Advanced Digital Media Production.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kara Bell. I'm at High School. I'm an information technology teacher, and so I'm presenting ECE Computer Science and Advanced Digital Media Production. The goals here are to provide students with further study from introductory courses. And we know that a lot of students are now going into computer science degrees. We now have AI categories, and then we also have communications and media production. So this course study would help to further give them a solid option of coursework and skills. Okay. The rationale here is that we have 2 courses currently, Introduction to Programming. From that course, there is an advanced programming class, and so the ECE would replace the advanced programming class, which is currently a half-year option, and then the ECE would be a full-year option. Digital media productions is a very popular class. I had one of my classes this year go from 14 to 22 in a matter of a couple of weeks, which was really great. And so now students who take that course could take this advanced digital media productions, which is also a whole year course. And then with the ECE, students would have access to the dual enrollment UConn in. For our strategic plan connections, we connect to equity. Students are eligible for these courses after taking those 2 introductory courses, but they can also be added into them with teacher approval. For example, if we had a senior who wasn't able to take those 2 courses, they could come in and easily sign up for these. They would meet the requirements. High quality instruction, they will gain college credit. The ECE uses Python programming language.
And then the advanced digital media productions will be using software that we currently have in place. Safe and supportive environment, we do all of this with online resources and in our small class sizes. Connecting to our building goals, we are supporting project-based learning. We have high quality instruction through the UConn curriculum, and then students are going to be involved in authentic experiences with video productions in connection with some of our community places. The Valley Shore community that we have over in Westbrook is going to be a big part of this course as well. Statistics and data for next year for signups for EC Computing, we have 10 requests and then we have 6 alternates. And then for advanced digital media productions, we have 6 requests, although students who are eligible for that, we have 49 students who will be able to sign up for that course. So if they had a period 5 that was open and the course was there, they could sign up for it. So that was our statistics and data. All right, challenges. 4 challenges, student requests are going to vary. So some meters may have more requests than others. This could follow some of the other formats that we have for like AP chemistry and AP biology. Maybe it's an every other year thing. It doesn't have to be every year. So they will be offered on an as needed basis. So if there aren't enough requests and signups, we'll move it to the next year. We'll maybe potentially do again more. Successes. I've completed the application process to teach the introduction to computing. So that is complete, ready to go. We've made connections with Valley Shore. I also have a connection with the Quiet Corner Film Festival, which is at Illinois. And students can link their video projects for the digital media course to other coursework, potentially even a capstone project. And next steps, teacher orientation on May 22nd, and then further develop the curriculum, so at Summer Institute, and then also meetings with Chuck coming out to talk about that next year.
Thank you, Barry.
So these are all opportunities that we're continuing to try to grow out our pathways and creating additional pathways for students to find opportunities to get college level credits and just explore the opportunities.
Is there a minimum number of students? Like, what's your minimum for knowing whether you can run it in a particular year?
That's a good question. We've had small class sizes from 5, 6, 7, and we have other courses that fall into that category, like our AP French. Sometimes it's only a handful of students. It all depends on where things will lie in the schedule and if it fits. And if we don't have enough students to sign up, then something else moves in.
And you've identified the potential teachers for it. They just need to be trained on how to teach it, or would you be the teacher?
I would be the teacher.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you would be the one getting the orientation.
Yep, so I'm already signed up. Yeah, there's 3 days in June and then the May 22nd orientation with new EC instructors.
Actually, Jane, before you ask your question, I'm actually looking for a motion first to approve these 2 courses. And a motion. Motion second.
Second.
By Karen. By Jane.
What is the fee for the students, to the students for this class?
Was just under 100%, 92%. Right, yeah, I think it's about $100.
We have funds available should they be financially unable to meet that, correct? And the students are aware of this?
Yes.
Perfect.
No other questions?
So Tara, how did you decide to sort of go in this direction? What prompted you to?
Sure, so we just have the 2 courses, so I've had some freshmen who have come in that are very strong in computer science and have taken the introduction class, the advanced class, and they're done as freshmen, and it's like, all right, what do we do now? I mean, they kind of max out that early on, so this is to help keep them moving and keep things going. The EC was a great option. There's the AP course, but I think the EC follows a really nice format. The curriculum is very, very well written, and the Python language is a very powerful program. So.
Thank you. All those in favor of these 2 courses, All those in favor? All those opposed? Abstentions? So moved. Thank you. And next item is, the official media, right?
Yeah.
ECE math for business and economics.
All right, so again, back to.
Okay.
We're going back to this, the and Bessie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm really happy to be here tonight on behalf of the math department. My name is Stacy Anderson. I'm the math coach and instructional leader in the district. And I'm here with
Missy Barnes, high school math teacher.
And we're here to talk about the ECE, the Early College Experience course titled Mathematics for Business and Economics. And our goal, the purpose of bringing this course to you tonight is really to diversify our mathematics pathway. For so long, our high-level math courses led us to calculus. And we know over the past several years that our students don't always have their paths through the calculus lens. We now have stats as well, but we thought that this course was a nice balance of providing a high level math course through the business and economics lens.
So I was here 3 years ago presenting the AP statistics, and when we presented that, we had to cut a senior math class that was, I don't remember what it was called, projects or something. And we have had really good success with the AP stats. We were able to get dual certified this year. So I don't know how familiar you are with AP and ECE, but AP can be taught by any certified teacher, but ECE, you have to have a transcript, you have to apply, you have to be approved. So this year we were able to make statistics, AP and ECE dual certified. We discovered that there was a lot of seniors that just didn't have math option.
Yeah.
So we needed to find something, and this course was presented to us from ECE as the first time it's being taught in Connecticut. So no school has taught it yet. There are a few of us on the shoreline that are talking about doing it. And it's just a great option for a student who doesn't want to take calculus, doesn't want to take pre-calculus, and already took statistics. That's why statistics class is here tonight. We talked a lot about, did you notice how much statistics will be? So I just think it's a really great option to earn college credit and take a higher level course and still be able to take math as a senior.
And I think it's important to note that the prerequisite for the course is Algebra 2, so that means that there are many students who would then be able to move on and have access to this course as well.
Right, and I think we'll just pop through it. It's very similar to the last presentation. There's one thing I want to point out when we get to it. The goals are very similar. You want to read through the goals? I think.
We did.
We did. Yeah, I can tell. Okay, keep going.
Another one?
Okay, get one more.
Okay.
This is the one that's important to me anyway. I really want to be able to come here and say, we're offering this course to seniors who aren't taking a math and have data for you. There's 25 seniors next year that are signed up for this course, if it gets approved.
Yeah.
So I think that speaks volumes. Some of them are taking two at the same time, but even just being able to take an ECE course is, I think, beneficial. Yes,
Okay.
questions already? Yes.
Yeah, so currently, do you know how many kids are in BC calculus right now?
BC,
Yeah.
currently there are 3 who are taking it virtually.
Oh, they're taking that virtually.
Because we did not have the capacity to run it as a course.
Okay, and so what does that mean? Who's teaching it if it's virtual?
It's a virtual,
Virtual.
virtual high school,
Okay.
so it's and then we have the teacher of record who's in our district to provide additional assistance if need be.
Okay.
Certified that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm inputting their scores, I get their transcripts from virtual.
Okay, okay, and like AB, is there more kid, is that a pretty robust program then, AB?
Yes, I think next year we have 20 signed up for EP.
Oh, great.
And then the following year, I think we'll have 8 to 10 for BC. So it fluctuates, depends on how many kids double up as a freshman.
Right, exactly. You gotta double up. So that's still the situation is you have to double up as a freshman to be able to go on that track.
To get to the BC.
Yes, to the BC.
We also have some who take Algebra 1 and 7th grade, which then they don't have to double.
Okay, so that's still an option. Okay, great.
I think we need a motion to continue discussion.
So first of all, I love that you're expanding these math options. That's fabulous. Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to approve the UConn ECE math for economics course as presented.
Second. Okay, any further discussion on these courses?
Excellent.
Okay, all those in favor? All right.
Aye.
Thank you.
All those opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work.
Saybrook High School Girls Lacrosse Board. Actually, before we do this, I'm gonna offer to our students here tonight, feel free to leave if you need to. If they can. Or want. If you want to.
Good night, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, you guys. You teachers.
This is how I get signups.
Great.
Thank you, take care.
Good night, you guys.
Hey, I'll say High School Girls Lacrosse donation.
All right, as we talked about last time, we also, anytime we have a donation of more than $500, that has to be presented to the board. So we wanted to notify you that we've received a donation from East Lyme Public Schools in the amount of $600 designated to be used towards the Old Saybrook High School Girls Lacrosse team.
Yeah.
I'm gonna let Pam, she's smiling in the corner.
Love that they did that.
Our coaches provided a clinic. And instead of like calling it a payment, they called it a donation.
Okay.
And therefore it's coming before you because of that in that it was, our coaches gave their students, their athletes a clinic. And that was their kind of honorarium for doing that.
Thank you.
Do we don't need to.
You don't need to vote
Yeah,
on
no. Okay, end of your events,
I love that this was compiled for us. Whoever did that.
right, helpful.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, it's awesome.
Are there any questions on the end of your events as listed?
Maybe just, if we need, there are times, sorry, the times at bottom on the high school.
and last time there was a request about the capstone presentation, so those are on there as well under the high school.
Yeah, this is a great format.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Now I think we're ready for our reports by administration tonight. Do we have any questions for the Kathleen Goodwin School on the report?
Just, we're doing climate surveys. How many surveys a year do we do?
Well, it's gonna differ. This survey, parts of it are state required. So when we add some additional questions that align to our strategic plan and school goals to that. It is not a long survey.
Follow up to that
Say about
question
20 minutes.
is it came up tonight. So we work with youth and family services, but we don't share information with youth and family services. We don't share de-identified information because they said they didn't have access to any of our services. So their last survey was 2017 and we've done them since.
I can respond to that because we do, my department sort of runs the back and, the buy and we don't provide the information directly to youth and family services. We use that information for our own internal small group instruction. It's not de-identified because we use it for our own students.
Is there a way to de-identify it and share some of the answers?
I would consider that if we were not meeting our students' needs within the district, but we identify groups based on that information, which is identifiable.
I understand, but if their organization is here to help outside of our school system, but we have information that may be able to help them develop ideas and programs for our youth outside of our school system, then it would seem like be a great opportunity to share information that we already have, if it's able to be de-identified and build that. Because maybe we don't need this big giant survey. Maybe they would have had the information to know what's going on.
I will just say that the BEC is an anxiety specific survey. It does not have any of the additional.
So the climate surveys are just that, they're not.
So there's a difference. So the climate survey, we can absolutely share. We share with, we share it here in front of the public. So that's a little bit different. It doesn't get into specifics of things like the topics that were being brought up here about, drug use or vaping or so forth. The screener that Sarah's talking about is specific to anxiety. Now, that being said, when we have patterns of things that we're seeing, whether it's through surveys, through screeners, or our own observations of things that we're seeing happening with students in our community. We do often share that with youth and family and do work with them to provide supports for the kids across the district.
And just to add, we do run meetings with youth and family services, 4 times a year, I believe. So we do share anecdotal information. So our the CST team is made up of our school psychologists, our school counselors, social workers, as well as youth, I'm kind of going around the table, as well as youth and family services. And we do share what is going on in the individual schools, what types, not kids, but types of groups that we're running, what types of information we're gathering, what information we're using to, I don't know, what we're using to even form like after school activities. All of that information is shared 4 times a year within that context, and the entire youth and family service counseling staff is there. Their counseling staff is also in our buildings. They work collaboratively with some of our counselors to run groups. So it is a very, I want to say a mesh, but very close collaboration without sharing specific information. Like I don't hand out the results of the buy, but they are well aware of what we're doing and what we're programming within the district.
Yeah, and I just, to add to that, I feel like we used to get administrative reports from Youth and Family Services. I've said that before. We used to, they've been in here before to talk about the stuff that they do in our school. And if they are so meshed in, I would just wonder why we're not hearing what they're doing in our schools. If we're helping them, I don't think it's too much to ask them to tell us what they're doing in our schools.
I'm sorry, can I? Oh, I'm happy to include that in my board report moving forward. I didn't know that that was something that was of interest. So I can do that moving forward. I can ask them each month for just a little update on school stuff. It would flow in with mine. And yes,
I think that would be greatly appreciated.
no problem.
Thank you.
Hey, Jack.
I just have a question for Krista or Heston, whomever might have the answer. It says, 2 new teachers hiring. Are those new positions? Are those due to retirement, resignation, or other?
They're due to retirement.
Thank you.
Okay.
This is for Heston?
Yeah.
Report. Yeah, so that's fantastic about the Goodwin Gallup running, raising over $10,000. Do you know where they're gonna be utilizing those funds for?
They've been building some funds to do something significant on one of our playgrounds. So that has not been decided yet, but that is the direction they're going in.
Yes.
Excellent. Also at middle school, do we have any questions for Mr. Walton tonight?
I don't.
I think
I would say that I just appreciate the emphasis on limited English proficiency and how the teachers are focusing on that and how it aligns with I think it's the last testing.
Yeah, we've done a lot of work this year.
Thank you. Old Saybrook High School. Any questions for Joe tonight? Comments? Ellie?
Thank you for including the NEASC standards, which are very comprehensive. And I'm sure that you need to have some evidence-based answers when they come.
Yeah, the entire process has changed since the last time the board, was a part of it, and it's more collaborative now. I actually had the opportunity to participate in a collaborative visit up in Turtle Lot High School in March, just to get a feel for it. I thought it was important that I went out as building principal, and yeah, it really stems from the self-report, the analysis based on the NEASC surveys, the observations, talking to kids, talking to parents, talking to teachers. And we had a chance, I don't know if you recall, we had a chance actually to defer a year. And I met with Jan at the time, and we felt that given the strength of our strategic plan and where we were, we welcomed it. So it's going to be nice to have an outside team of educators to come in and view what we're doing and give us the positive and give us things we can work on. So it's only going to make us better. So we're excited about it. The collaborative visit is in the fall, and then they come back in the spring of 2026 for more in-depth. So we'll keep you posted along the way.
Okay. Just curious, I don't know where this would be, but there was mention that the chamber choir over the weekend was eventful. What was eventful?
They had a bus malfunction on the way back. And it took a while to get a bus there. The company that provided the bus service, it took a while to finally let us know that it was going to be an even longer time to get a bus there. So we ended up having to send a bus up from M&J, which they moved very quickly to do that. And it took a while for them to drive up there. So they were kind of stuck on the bus for a little while.
M&J wasn't the company we used for the bus?
It was not, because it was a coach bus, because they were going up to Maine and back.
Like, will they reimburse M&J?
We are in communications with them right now to figure out, because the kids also unfortunately missed some of the events that they were supposed to have in Boston. So we're gonna have to work that out, but we're in the process of having that discussion right now.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Joe or Chris, remember, I'm looking at this, the shed writing contest. Students, is there any chance we can get one or some of them to come here and share these? Because I would love to hear this humor parody of Macbeth. I'd love to hear Lily read the Lord of the Flies. I mean, it's just a thought, because that sounds like some pretty awesome stuff.
Yeah, I've had the chance to attend these readings. So the kids will do readings, or they have actually the hosting school often has actors or drama kids read excerpts of all the pieces throughout. It's a really wonderful celebration. So maybe we can put our heads together and come up with something creative to share with you.
I need this persuasive piece by using the popcorn shortcut button. We put that in the agenda.
Awesome, yeah.
Very nice, thank you. Hey, curriculum instruction and assessment, any questions on that report?
Actually, quick question, and I'm encouraged not looking for specifics, but I was wondering when you talked about the evaluation revisions. Like how significant scope is the state looking for those evaluation revisions to look like?
So the state has made changes to a lot of the components of our evaluation plan. So, and that's all across the board for every district in Connecticut. We are no longer using ratings as part of the evaluation process. And with that, the rubrics have now been cut down from 4-point rubrics to single point rubrics, where we're looking at a single point of competency and looking to see how close an educator or a person being evaluated is meeting that competency, or where there's opportunities for growth. So that's kind of the major changes inside of the evaluation plan, which puts a big emphasis on how we were doing things. They also removed language around student learning objectives, or SLOs.
Yeah.
So now they're professional growth goals.
Okay.
So they're really trying to move it more to a coaching model, where evaluator and evaluatee is having more of a coaching session rather than identifying where someone falls on that 4-point scale.
You're gonna be presenting that to the board later.
I did see that.
So it was more of a primer to let you know that here are some of the things that you will be seeing in future meetings.
It sounds like a big change, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, good, thank you.
Hey,
I know that you and Jan said that there's lots of waivers, and that's still, being discussed at the state and.
So right now, nothing has come back, nothing has come to me. I don't believe anything has reached Chris's desk either. From all of the waivers that we did in meetings that we've held with the State Department of Ed. So right now, we're still moving forward with a plan to address how would we answer some of our own research questions around literacy that do meet the Right to Read Act and helps us to take one of these programs and make it fit our instructional needs here in Old Saybrook.
Until further information.
Until
comes your way.
further information.
Okay, operations, facilities and finance. Questions?
I actually did have just one quick question, Pam. When you talked about the unencumbered special ed balance of 268 and change. Do you anticipate that's the final amount at the end of the year? And what happens with that money?
That's in an off-budget account that stays, so it's not part of the budgeted funds, it's funds we've received from outside sources, so that balance can stay. It doesn't have to be expended, it does not get returned to the town.
Okay, okay.
We
That's my
have,
question.
we kind of have an unwritten agreement with the town that we try to make sure it doesn't go beyond a certain level, that they aren't just continuing to grow and grow and grow. So that we keep that in mind,
Okay.
but we wanted to make sure everyone was aware that those accounts exist.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Right, student services, question for Sarah. Okay. Athletics. Brendan, you, question for Brendan.
League, boys and girls track. We had meet one, we won them. Meet two is on 4/23. How'd we do?
I don't know the total points on the top of my head. Typically, the league meets, it's not really about who wins a meet. It's more about who qualifies for Shoreline under stage. We had a league meet today. I don't know the total points. They haven't been added up again. It's more important. The invitationals, you go, who took first, who took second, who took third. For a league meet, it's not overly, it's focused on who won the actual meet. It's more who qualified for postseason activities.
Thank you.
Thank you. Even our superintendent report, questions for Chris Bennett.
Actually, we had a good meeting with students and being interested in becoming student reps, and I think tonight is the night they came tonight, they came at our last board meeting.
Yep.
Their election is in May.
It is early May.
I see that there's some changes made to the locker rooms and things like that. Did any parents ever end up filing any complaints?
I would say there wasn't any complaints filed, no. I think we had,
Were there any phone
Some-
calls received?
I think we had some suggestions of things that could be helpful. And those are what we've added to this list here, which included some minor modifications to stalls to make sure that they were more private and making sure that students know, regardless of what the reason is, that they have areas that they can change in that are private and where those are.
So what would a definition of a complaint be?
No, I don't think we've gotten any complaints from parents about that. I wouldn't say anything would be considered a complaint, just more suggestions of things that would be helpful.
I feel like we did have a parent complaint in the last meeting, right? Wasn't it during public comment?
Yes, we had a parent that was concerned, really, it seemed mostly about the legal piece of it, that we really have to make sure that we're following the law, and these pieces that we are adding for students to be able to, for whatever reason, want to have a more private changing area, we'll be able to have that. And that's fits within for all students, and that's for all students, it's regardless of what the reason might be. Yeah, so, and that was shared with that parent, yeah.
Okay, so that's it for the reports by administration. So administrators, feel free to leave if you'd like to.
Good job.
You did want.
Riveting.
Thank you for your time.
Good night, everybody. Okay, who's calling? Oh, those are-
Right. Okay, so reports by board committees. The first one you have is budget and fiscal.
We have haven't had a meeting since we. Approved our budget.
Hey,
He is now providing mentorship for board chairs. As an initiative for board chairs that might want some support. So they have a lot of, board chairs from various districts that are interested.
so I didn't know that.
The other aspect is that, CABE is now partnering with the state of Connecticut to provide, professional development for Board of Education members. Although it's not mandated, they will be providing professional development for boards of education, just like they would for teachers. In terms of, navigating being a board member.
Isn't that, I seem to recall that Jan reported at the beginning of the year, there is a state requirement that new board members do attend training, and there was no training. So is this the training now?
It's a training option, yeah. So what happens is it came up in the discussion is like, so is there any kind of compliance? What happens if you don't?
Right.
And I don't think there is, but it's recommended, so that's something that a superintendent would probably say. You know, we need to have some training for our board members. New board members, seasoned board members.
So it's required, but it's optional. It doesn't make any sense. In the state's infinite wisdom. Yeah. it's
Well, that
like-
would be the first time.
Right, how do we decide which rules we're supposed to follow and which ones we're not?
Interesting message, so.
I can say that in the absence of a formal training, whenever we do have new board members, we have utilized the written materials that
Yeah.
CABE does provide.
Yeah.
We give out, and, you know, it's a lot more of a passive thing. but,
Yeah, right, yeah.
We have provided that to our.
No, I know that we do that, yeah, thanks.
Okay, facilities.
We did meet.
Yeah, we did.
We did.
Kelly, we definitely, I think Kelly's our chair.
Kelly's the chair, right? Yes.
Kelly, the chair.
Kelly, so,
Steve were in the meeting
we were there.
and we did it.
You guys do everything. I think you saw in the report that basically the
Yeah.
facility, Pam did the facility report, if you read that. Bleachers are getting replaced, high school, middle school.
Yeah.
Everything's going well.
Jim's.
The switch gear's still not here, so we're probably gonna be on generator again. But hopefully it'll be here, hopefully it'll get approved in the fall, so we're waiting on prices for generators. Everything else is good. If there's any questions, ask Pam.
We had to do the bleachers, that was an ADA compliant. But they look really nice.
They look, yeah, they're very cool, and that's, they're being excited,
Very
and so
excited.
much safer, you know.
So much safer, accessible for everybody, and I think they're gonna look really nice. It'll make our gyms look much more modern.
And the divider at the middle school is being inspected and looked at and.
Yeah,
and looked
see what
at.
that's gonna
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. They're gonna paint the middle school gym, just like they did the high school.
And there's no banners on.
There's
it.
no banner. There's no banner.
That was part of
The banner day.
No
Press
press.
and noted.
Okay, for Learn, there was no meeting in April. I was gonna try to go to that. There's no meeting in April, so I really have nothing to report. Hoping for next year, we can have, board member, we can actually make a couple meetings next year, because I have not been able to go to a meeting. I think Steve was able to go to many.
So they'll end up with.
Yeah, they're Thursday mornings, like 8:30 to like 11, so it's just a tough time for people.
Is there any consideration in giving Learn some feedback about that?
I have before.
They're not really interested. in
Now it's
changing what they do.
their hours, that's what you do.
Are they,
But they had the minutes
are
online.
they retired people? Is that why they can spend a whole morning? I mean, like.
It's business. That's their business hour.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
them holding a
Yes.
meeting
Right.
and,
I mean,
but how do other people go? Are we the only person? Are we the only
No, there's
board?
a lot of schools who don't go. I mean, we're always there. We always have like a plate.
Right.
See, I think your name's still there.
I mean, it seems like they should
I mean,
reconsider how they,
Right.
you know.
Even kind of virtually, that's an option too.
Yes, so it's-
But still, it's a time of the day, it's just work for people.
Yeah.
30 to 11. So we'll give them the feedback before, so. But like I said, I'm hopeful that perhaps next year we could, let's go to a couple of meetings.
Well, it would be great if they could just send out minutes.
I was gonna print some tonight, there's something else to report on.
Yeah,
No, but I mean, you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
they just made that a practice to send out minutes.
right, because then at least you stay up to date.
Yeah.
I mean,
I asked him that question, he said, well, it's on our website, go get it.
do we pay to be members of this?
I don't know that answer to that question.
Learns our risk.
Right,
So that's,
yeah.
we don't pay for it. Yeah, it's just for a risk.
so, yeah.
I will get back to you. I believe they do send out minutes.
Okay. That's all we need.
How long are they? Trevor, how long are they?
I can get them to.
Like 8:30 to like 10:30, 11 o'clock, 2.5 hours.
I have a very flexible work schedule, so if there was something coming up and you wanted to send somebody, I could probably,
Great,
depending on the situation I have for work that day.
it'd be awesome, why over the meeting or two. I actually have a turnout of the remaining schedule for the year, so it's what we left, it's one in May, one in June. I'll do that here. Okay, strategic planning. And then
No, no report.
demographics,
No report.
personnel.
My phone is telling me to avoid stressful discussions. I just find it very interesting.
I've not gotten that.
So, we have a personnel meeting this Thursday evening at 6 p.m. I'm gonna put this takes care of me.
Is it going to be a stressful meeting?
But I think this was, my blood pressure must be going over something, I'm reading something here. So that's it for personnel.
Nothing. I was going to the chairman report, I was gonna mention about the mentorship program myself today, so I was gonna actually take part in that, try to. So,
So you can connect with Nick.
try the email this work.
Yeah.
Question.
Go ahead.
Back to policy, in light of all the discussion we've been having lately about sexual identification and Title IX seems to be a big issue these days. Eileen, do you think there's any policies we need to review to make sure they're up to date, I'll say? I mean, I know it's a change, a thing that changes on a daily basis sometimes, but maybe the next meeting we put an agenda item to look at some of the policies that may be touched on by some of the issues that Krista addressed and some of the things that are happening in the news.
What I was gonna say is that the attorney said that they are going to be updating the policy for some of this, but they don't have it done yet.
Right.
So it will be coming, their recommendations for any tweaks to that policy.
Okay, I just.
So it's just not ready yet, so
Yeah.
we don't really have a whole lot to go on quite yet.
I just want to be responsive to the community and we could update our policies without or in advance of the direction. And then, of course, we could always change them to whatever the state or federal government.
We get all the
asks.
legal language.
Yes, I think we would just need to make sure we're very
Yeah.
cautious with those updates.
And could you also just throw on your agenda, the simple revision of the audience and citizens language in the back? So we can have it ready to go when we start the new year.
Yeah, so I'll talk to you about it. But we
Great,
can
thank you.
Go ahead and save.
Yeah, it's very wordy.
It is very wordy. Noted.
Oh, I guess I'll have a follow-up question. Did they have any thoughts as to if those changes will be coming in this school year or by next fall or
She didn't
December?
give, she didn't give me a date. So they do tend to come in waves. So. But she did not give me a date on that.
Yeah, well, no one you know that.
I would
Yeah,
say
I-
often, Jim, I get a big update generally just before school starts, so like late July, August, that typically. You know, for the last several years, we've been parsing these out in phases. This is phase 3 of this year that we just approved tonight. So I'm usually pretty ready for phase 1 by our first meeting in October, second meeting in September, maybe even. Our board agendas tend to be so robust with just the business of getting things off the ground in the first couple of meetings of September. And plus, you know, it's been the board's preference to have a policy committee meeting before the night that we actually discuss it for the first time. It's not always possible for meeting for that. So yeah, usually in July, August, we get a big batch of here's 10 to 15 policies that changed. Whether or not it'll come, I can't promise you that, but that's usually what I get.
And we can't have any influence over them to say, we want to see this in this first batch. Is there any?
Well, the batches usually are once that information comes to us, a lot of times we're going through and identifying which things need to be addressed first based on, the needs here or, you know, the legal requirements. So.
I'd just like to point out that we can set our policies however we want. We are not dictated or mandated by the legal process, by the lawyers. They provide us a service. It's great that they provide us a service to help guide us through this. But at any point, as a board, if there's a policy we wish to choose to review or we wish to create, we can do that. If we need their guidance, we can request it. But it's not like we're beholden to them to review these, or these are the only policies we can look at.
Or you'll get
We're the
it.
board. We can do
Yeah.
And
what
that is
needs to
true.
be done.
For example, we had the updated policy around, the board or the student reps on the board. I think what we do have to make sure that we do though is make sure that we are right, that we are following the legal obligations, that we have as.
Correct, but if we identify a policy that we have questions on, we can then tell them we need this policy reviewed. These are the changes we would like. We don't need to just sit here and wait till they go through everything and say, we think we should change these. We're the board. We dictate what goes on in Old Saybrook.
Just as an important note, because I do agree with you, just something to keep in mind as the board and the person who's the record keeper of the policy changes. Fidelity is a concern. Assuming that I'm not always gonna be sitting in this chair, the next version of me. We get our big updates from Ship and Goodwin. It's not always gonna be clear. It's hard to carry over language that we create in out years. Because it becomes a hybrid of, here are the legal changes that we have to implement from Shipman and Goodwin. Here are the recommendations from Shipman and Goodwin that we can take it or leave it, optional language. And here's the stuff that 5 years ago we decided that we wanted to put in. And that for me is difficult, and I've been sitting in this chair for 10 years. The next me is probably gonna struggle, and it's also assuming that you who are making those changes are not necessarily gonna be board members the next time you look at that policy. So I'm not saying you can't do it, you're absolutely right, you can. I caution doing it too much and too often.
Even the policy we were discussing around. the kind of fell
Right,
into
right.
that.
I just wanted to put that out there as a general warning, because yep, you can do it, but it could be a nightmare in out years.
And that's
Point,
important.
we can actually modify, we can request to have specific policy we want looked at, we can do that.
So I've sort of had that on the list for a while to look at the policies that are associated with this particular issue that we've been dealing with of late, because as a board member, I wasn't aware of a policy change that it enabled the current state of affairs. And just as Dr. Fletcher is evaluating our reading program in conjunction with what the legislative mandate is with respect to reading, I feel like we should have the ability as a board to assess how we want our policy to support legislation and what works for our district. And so that's why I would like to be able to discuss that policy on a near-term agenda. Because I think that there's a lot of questions among board members, I presume, and we really haven't had an opportunity to talk about it as board. And I don't.
Is that a board discussion or is that a policy discussion?
I think it starts in the policy, commission, and then it moves up into the, main body.
So that you can attend those meetings.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so can we request a policy
I was
meeting?
gonna say, if you, send Krista the policy that you want to look at, between now and, we can take a look at it, but yeah, I mean, that's an option. To take a look, whatever you're concerned about.
Yeah, I think one of the things that you might want to consider that, so one of the things that we could consider is having the attorney come and talk to all of you. We could do that even through executive session, so you could ask the questions that you want to ask without having to worry about some additional pieces there. But that's an option, and she could walk through with you and make sure that you have a very clear understanding of the law and then what things we could or
Are
could not
negotiable.
do.
Yeah,
Right.
I think that's a great idea.
So that's definitely an option to put on an executive session. Kind of down.
Okay.
And which policy is that? Is that in there again? Or you were just
Any
mentioning?
idea? I understand that we have a policy.
On,
We have a non-discrimination policy that would fit under.
Yeah.
It does not get into too many specifics, but of course, we always follow the law as well. So I think that she would be a good person to have share that information with much detail so that if you have specific questions, then you have
can
a
find-
legal
right, yeah.
response to that.
Exactly, yeah,
So.
right.
Krista, what's that policy you said?
It's a
Non-discrimination.
non-discrimination policy.
Jamie, you got a question?
Yeah, just kind of similar on that line of, we need to look to, if they're working on this and there's things that people are concerned about, I feel like we need to speak up now rather than being behind the game, so.
Having her might not be able to do that.
Yeah, so are you talking about for next time, or are you talking about for?
I'd have to see her availability too.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I want to talk about the upcoming schedules too, because based on tonight's meeting, we're gonna have to have a board discussion on topics from the survey. We're gonna have to do it either a special meeting.
Yeah.
We don't have time or another to do that. Yeah, that's my priority.
Okay, so how many meetings do we have left till we take our summer break?
We have 2 Mays,
Okay, 2 minutes.
so we have 1 June.
Okay, so we have 3 meetings. I don't see why we can't fit that in. I mean, I know I hear every time, "Well, we have a really packed agenda. And yet I never feel like they're really packed agendas. So we can fit stuff in, especially stuff that's important to the community and important to the school system. So I think we can easily fit in one of those 3 meetings, having an executive session to have the lawyer come in and put this topic to rest.
I completely agree, Steve. I mean, we can do that.
I don't think the survey is gonna be a big deal. And I wasn't expecting to hear back from them until September, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they might not, and we could probably even move that to the fall when we go through the
They
questions.
can turn it around.
Yeah, so it sounds like they could. That was a good question that you
It's
asked.
all online. They're
Yeah.
just gonna check, okay, we're gonna allow them to have these questions, we're not gonna allow them
Yeah.
these questions.
So I think you probably could do that in the fall, and then I can reach out to the attorney and give her the dates of our meetings and see which one she's available to attend.
And certainly, we would have to do that executive session at the beginning of the meeting to make it convenient for the attorney. She's not gonna sit here
Exactly.
and wait around for 9:30 or whatever the heck time it is. Because it's counterproductive to have a policy meeting when there's so many legal.
Yeah, there's a lot
I
of legal
like that.
pieces to
We
this
can't
one,
do
so I would feel very uncomfortable with us changing it without having,
Right.
without having the attorney's guidance.
Yeah.
Just because it is such a complicated.
Yeah.
Jim, go ahead.
Just, on that token you're speaking about, Karen, I don't agree with Phil, but I'm amenable to having a special meeting on another day besides those 3 days. that
And we might
discussed.
have to if she's not available.
Whatever the attorney's schedule is. That way we can have a meeting, the attorney's there for the meeting, and then the attorney leaves and we leave.
Yeah. It's not gonna affect our-
I would agree with Jim, because it's gonna be a topic that everyone here is gonna wanna be able to be heard. And I think we need to give everybody that opportunity to be heard and to listen to each other. And a special meeting where that's our only goal might provide us that best opportunity I could easily see it taking time for everybody
I would
to
imagine.
hear everybody and to be heard.
Yeah, so start with the attorney and her availability.
Okay, I will reach out.
So we got May 14th, May 28th, June 11th are our last 3 meetings.
So I will ask her if any of those are available, or if there's another time in the evening that she was able to come and do that.
And I'm suggesting, I'm agreeing with Jim, probably another separate. meeting.
Okay, you would prefer a separate meeting, okay.
That makes more sense. So
Okay, I will reach out.
I mean, just for the point that Trevor made, is the attorney doesn't want to sit around.
No, that's true.
While
We'll be
we-
paying her for sitting around.
Yeah, that's right.
That's our money.
Then I don't want her sitting around either.
Okay, so
You know,
plan
get
there.
in, get out, do your business, and we're all done.
Finally, on reminders, I know we've got our referendum coming up in May. So, Katie, do you know when the date of the town meeting is?
I don't have it off the top of
Sixth,
my
I
head.
think it's the
The
sixth.
sixth or the 14th, something like that.
The sixth and then the referendum's the 14th, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah, so there's a town meeting on
And
the
I-
6th and then.
Yeah. So
What's
let-
that town?
Meeting 14th.
The budget.
Of course, the issue of the 14th, that's being a board meeting on the 14th too. That's the referendum.
Well, you can vote. in the morning.
I know, I'm just
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah, it's usually what, 12 to
12 days.
8
Yeah, it's short.
at the high school,
Okay,
something like that. I apologize.
Yeah.
okay. So, yeah, no, that's the last reminder and about the rec one coming up in May. So, now anything else? So, I'm looking for a motion.
Any motion to adjourn?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.
Who was the second?
Yeah.
Oh, good.
I didn't choose a mentor